Wait, are you gonna like play music to start?
Yeah, I'm gonna play music.
Which one? What are you gonna?
Well, you'll find out. Okay. All right, you ready? Yeah. Okay. Hey. Hi. Andy.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to our show. I'm Basketball Babble with Andy and Josh. I'm Andy Rocco.
I'm Josh.
Yes.
Hi, Andy. I'm Josh Weiner.
Josh Weiner. I know very little about basketball. Close to nothing, but I do know some things. Josh is a basketball expert. And during the quarantine, we're going to talk about basketball related things, and Josh will school me on various topics.
I'm by no means an expert
as
far as being. No, I couldn't teach someone how to play it, but well, I probably know a lot more than the average fan. Yeah.
You know more than me.
Yes. As far as basketball goes, that's a very low bar.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in an offensive way. It's just nothing.
I am wearing my LA Clippers hat, which was just given to me, and I'm just wearing because I know it's a basketball team. I don't know anything about them other than that they're doing better.
They're arguably doing right now. They're the best they've ever been.
Yes.
They are historically one of the worst sports franchises in all of sports, not just the NBA, but probably up until 10 years ago, when starting with Lob City with Blake Griffin and Chris Paul.
Mm-hmm.
They were probably the worst. They were the worst NBA franchise ever, but
they're kind of like aren't they kind of like the Mets a little bit?
No.
No? Because I always thought the Mets were like a blue collar, like outside New York team that people are like people like the Yankees more. I feel like people like the Lakers. Is it the Lakers?
Okay, yeah. I'll give, or like kind of the Jets, the Giants, and yes, I will give you that. But the Mets and the Jets, or literally any team has been run much better than the Clippers have. They are just. I mean, I'm sure there probably are case studies of how bad they are and how you don't run a team that way.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of forgot, but like at one point, so the current status of basketball right now is that at one point I heard they were doing fanless games, right?
So interestingly, the night, I think it was the early March, maybe even late April. It was that one Wednesday night when the NBA suspended its season and like Tom Hanks and the Rita Wilson diagnosis came out.
Yeah.
And I think Trump gave the Oval Office address maybe the following night.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember that was going to, that night, whenever that was going to be the last night of fans at games, because your sign, yeah. The production value is insane. That night, so California had outlawed, had banned gatherings over 250.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a Golden State Warriors game in San Francisco that was going to take place the night after, and they were already going to go with no fans in the arena.
Mm-hmm.
So the NBA was gearing up to kind of embrace this new reality. But that night, this guy named Rudy Gobert, player for the Utah Jazz, tested positive literally seconds before a tip-off game, and they shut it down that night. There were 2 games in progress, so they played them out. One of them was nationally televised. It was a Dallas Mavericks versus I can't remember who it was, but it's weird. You're watching it when the announcement came down. So you're watching this game knowing this is this is the last game you're going to be watching for a while.
Wow.
For a while. And I'll tell you, just let it be. Maybe, I don't know. Well, there you go. Yeah. That's better. Another interesting side note, and I think this unfortunately will get lost in the shuffle. There was an Atlanta Hawks game being played that night as well. And on the Atlanta Hawks is this guy named Vince Carter, who he's been in the league 21 or 22 years. I think he set the record. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's an all-time great player. His nickname was Vinsanity. He's the best in-game dunker ever. Like, not even a question. Like, a lot of people can, do fancy dunks during a dunk contest, including Vince Carter. But in all due respect to Michael Jordan, who, watching in the Last Dance documentary, but no one has ever.
We're going to get into today.
We'll get into. I'm sorry, I just want to make sure Vince Carter gets his due. No one has ever been a better in-game dunker than Vince Carter. And he's not just that, but like that is one really special, unique thing about him. Anyway, this was his last season, and he had announced it, and this was kind of his farewell tour. But it was really bittersweet for tons of reasons, but he wasn't playing that night, or he wasn't in the game, but when the word came down that the season was being suspended, he was put back in the game because everyone quickly realized, oh, this is his last game. Because most likely, the season wasn't going to restart, and they weren't going to be in the playoffs, the Atlanta Hawks. And so, it was really, really bittersweet.
I have a question. How old is he? If this is
Vince Carter?
Yeah.
42.
Wow.
Which is my age, which is for a professional athlete, especially a game like basketball, it's really fucking old.
Yeah. So
yeah,
that's kind of a bummer of a send-off to have.
So it kind of got lost in the shuffle of, obviously, an unbelievable torrent of bad news.
That is a bummer. That's kind of it's kind of like when you think about all the, to a smaller scale, of all the weddings that people had to like postpone. But like having your big retirement, I can imagine, is really sad. And also people who are deathly ill or have deathly ill loved ones. I guess those are the things that are worse in life.
Yeah.
But
the weddings, like, not that that's not important to people, but those could be rescheduled. And I guess technically Vince Carter could come back and play like a game.
Maybe they can shoot him playing horse at his house with somebody.
Are you're referencing the ESPN televising the horse, or no? No,
what's that?
So ESPN, and I give them credit because like we're all scrambling. So a lot of players have either gyms at their homes and or just hoops in the driveway.
Sure.
And they coordinated this remote televised game of horse.
Really?
And I get A for effort.
Is it worth watching, in your opinion?
No. No. No, I'd rather just just interview them. I don't like. And I guess, I don't know, it's kind of cool to like see so Trae Young, he plays for the Atlanta Hawks with Vince Carter, but it's his second year in the league. He's one of the best up and coming players. He averages like 30 points a game. He's really fun to watch. And multi-millionaire. But he just had a hoop on his driveway.
But the thing I'm wondering about, in the sense of horse, is that I feel like to watch like NBA players play horse would be probably pretty boring. They would just get all the shots. I feel like horse is like a game for kids in the way that like no kid is ever skilled enough to like shoot well. I feel like the game of horse seems pretty easy for those guys.
I think like the worst NBA player can just like make 15 threes in a row, like on a random day. Yeah. And also the production. I mean, I don't know how they shot. Obviously, maybe they sent them camera. I don't know, but like it didn't look great. And like I said, at least they tried something.
Yeah, you gotta enjoy something, I guess.
Yeah.
But I guess that kind of segues to I guess today's main topic of discussion, which is the Michael Jordan documentary series of sorts. I have not seen any of this. I may
You
not
are.
see any, but this
You're.
might be. Hmm?
Go ahead.
I may not see any of it because maybe you'll just tell me exactly what's going on. And I do have some questions for you about Michael Jordan that I've gotten through osmosis and obscure sources.
Hmm.
And you can fill me in on some of that, I guess. And we'll talk about the great legend Michael Jordan. But this is what you said, not on the show yet. But you told me that Michael Jordan's documentary is satiating the hunger that basketball fans are having right now a little bit to watch this at least and be like, remember the days when we watched Michael Jordan? And
Yeah, it's coming the closest to approximating that shared event that sports can bring.
and
And it, yeah, well, it's airing in America. I don't know. Um, I think outside of USA, it's like on Netflix, but in the US, like it's coming on TV. Like it comes, I'm sure people are DVRing and watching it whenever, but there's just something exciting about it coming on at 9 o'clock, and everyone is
and it's a docu
sitting around
series.
watching it.
It's a
It's
docu,
a 10-part docu-series. They're doing 2 episodes a night.
and each episode is a certain part, like his college life, his
So, okay, so it's
his
called The
experience
Last.
with Space Jam.
I'm sure Space Jam will get a lot of, have its own break-off series.
That should
Um,
be an episode, or it should. But
as someone that's never seen Space Jam, I can't comment.
wait, you never seen Space Jam?
No.
Why haven't you seen? I've seen Space Jam.
Yeah, so okay, if you're growing up if you're a kid and then a teenager growing up when I did,
Mm-hmm.
basketball was very like your team was your team. It meant more, I think, than maybe it does now, and we kind of popularize and romanticize how all players on all teams know each other and hang out and they're friends and there's kind of more fluidity.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, like you were on your team for your career.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, if you were a fan of this guy, Isaiah Thomas, he was the point guard for the Detroit Pistons, the 2-time back-to-back champion Detroit Pistons. Thank you very much. Anyway, back then, teams stayed together for like pretty much a decade at a time. And you had to beat that team to eventually get to the top. Like, for instance, the Pistons, we had to beat the Celtics with Larry Bird and Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish.
Mm-hmm.
And that was our...
I knew one of those names.
Yeah, great. I'm assuming Larry Bird?
Yes.
Yeah, he's a top 5 player of all time. He's amazing. Anyway, we had to get through the Celtics. The Bulls had to get through us. And we were assholes. We didn't have as much talent as everyone else in the league. So we had to we were called the bad boys for a reason. You came into the lane, we would elbow you. You get elbowed, you get knocked to the ground. It was not so. Long story short, Jordan was the enemy. You don't watch the enemy's movie. And now I really don't care about seeing it. Now now I get to be like the guy who now I'm like the person who's like, oh, I've never seen Star Wars, and you get to be all smug.
Yeah.
Well,
there's all those spin-offs of Space Jam. Well, there is going to be a spin-off with LeBron.
That's right.
And possibly Jim Carrey's character from The Mask is supposed to be in it now.
Amazing.
Well, yeah.
I can't wait to not see that either. I don't have any desire.
I would just want to ask a quick follow-up question about what you were saying about the Detroit Pistons back then, and possibly now, I don't know, but is that part of the thing, which is kind of Detroit is such a rough and tumble type place, that's why they were so aggressive a little bit?
Maybe. I mean, I think every team kind of adopts, except for just off the top of my head, except for like the Lakers and the like this era Golden State Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
I think every team kind of adopts the blue collar work ethic.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know if that's any more us than it is the Pittsburgh Steelers, for example. But long story short, so when we were trying to get through the Celtics, we were trying to get to this guy. This is Magic Johnson. I also love. And so the 80 Celtics and the 80 Lakers were, well, the Bulls and the Warriors have surpassed them, but at the time those were the two best teams ever.
Mm-hmm.
And they were the most talented teams ever. And this was back when Bird and Magic were kind of going back and forth for best player ever, before it was just clear that Jordan's just like on a whole other level. Mm-hmm. And even a hater like me has to be like, yeah, this guy's he's the best. He's the absolute best.
Right.
But so our goal was to get past the Celtics and the Lakers, who had not just talent. I mean, they had far more talent, but they also had a size. They were just bigger. Mm-hmm. So we just had to. Our best player, Isaiah, he's 6 foot. Like for basketball, that's nothing. That's short. It's really short. So yeah, we had to like, okay, we're not big enough and we're not talented enough to beat you. We gotta gotta like slow down the game and hit you and yeah, the game got kind of ugly for a little bit because of us, because a lot of people started to adopt our styles, and the New York Knicks in the early 90s, they kind of basically copied what we did. And you look at like, I think like last year, the year before, the average score of a game had to be like in the like around like 115 or 120. It's high because teams are shooting more 3-pointers now, and they've changed the rules where you can't like hold a player or check them.
Right.
Back then it was like scores were, I didn't think of it because I'm a kid and you're just loving what you're watching, but the scores were like in the low 80s. It was like really ugly basketball. It was not pretty to watch. But yeah.
Well, that's
Sorry, did that answer your question?
No, but it was super interesting. I guess to redirect, so that's interesting that so much of it's changed, kind of like how hockey, both games of hockey and basketball to me seem like kind of have the same like mentality of like kind of a lot of movement, like going back and forth, and like kind of almost the same principle. And they both kind of changed too, because at one point hockey had a lot of like the enforcer, and there was a lot of fights. And basketball has seemed to kind of probably not as bad, because I never heard of a lot of fights happening in basketball to the extent that it was part of the game.
Sure. I mean, well, they've pretty much taken that out, like in between emphasizing just scoring, and now if you come off the bench, not even participating in the fight, just you step onto the floor, you're suspended for a game. So let alone if you're in the fight and you throw a punch. So they've pretty much gotten pretty much all fighting out of the league. This is like, and I think hockey's the same. Like they've curtailed it. Yeah. And I know football has changed the rules to allow for more scoring, and I think it just comes down to the simple fact that these are TV shows, and more people want to see the TV show if there's more. Yeah. If there's more scoring going on. It's just, simple as that.
Yeah, people want to feel good.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, look, and I get it. Like, it's more like I like watching basketball a lot more now. I will say this: like back then, it was very rigid as far as like what each position did. Like your center stayed down in the post, down by the basket, and they would just catch the ball and do a post move and block shots. But now you have players. Everyone's kind of, it seems like, I don't know what the actual stats are, but it seems like everyone now is kind of like 6'9", and everyone is like just a skilled basketball player. And there's not so much rigidity, is that a word? Rigidness as far as who does what. It's more fluid, and it's just better to watch. It's just a much better game. to watch.
So let me ask you this. So we go back to the topic at hand, which is, I also, now that you mentioned that you're not a fan on principle of that's not your boy, the Michael Jordan, like he's not your guy. Geez.
Definitely more when I was a kid, not.
Yeah, okay. But did you feel any kind of resentment watching?
No, I loved every second of it, and if anything, I was like, "Oh, why was I a dumb kid? I should have like appreciated this guy more."
Yeah.
But whatever, you're a kid and you're playing the Pistons. Like,
so where is it? Where is it at in the documentary right now?
So the first 2 episodes were, they chronicled like his beginning, his college years and early days on the Bulls. There's a great scene in it. He got into the league in '84, and like there used to be a big cocaine problem in the league, like, big problem. And Jordan was, he says in the doc, he's pretty straight-laced when he came in. He didn't do drugs, didn't even really drink.
Yeah. And Gatorade.
Is that our sponsor?
Yes, it's a nice sponsor.
Long story short, the Bulls were bad. The better play you are, the worse team you go to, because that's who gets the higher draft pick. So they're on the road, and he walks into this hotel room to see what everybody else is doing, and he described it as a quote unquote cocaine circus. He was like, there are just guys doing mines, there are guys just getting drunk, like in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
He just walked out, and and so he definitely helped change the culture of that organization, leading them just into credibility, to competency, to one of the best of all time. And then the second episode chronicled Scottie Pippen.
His relationship with Scottie Pippen?
Or just Scottie's place in the dynasty.
Was he on the same team, or was he a
great question.
temporary?
Yeah. He was. No, he was.
Okay.
He was the second most important player. The Batman to his Robin, or the Robin to his Batman, as everyone will say. He's probably top 30 player of all time. He was. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Could not have happened without Scottie Pippen. He was amazing.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of things people kind of fail to remember, is that like a lot of these the team, like with these great players, they have like a pretty great team that helps support that guy. Like,
you look at any champion, and I don't know, I imagine it's the same in other sports, but I know with NBA teams, you look at any championship team, they usually have at least two, most times 3 Hall of Fame players.
Yeah. So you've been enjoying this documentary with MJ.
Oh, I love it. It's mainlining nostalgia, and it's great. I love it. And again, it's like that thing of like, this is one of the few things we can all, that's happened. I mean, obviously it's not, the documentary is not live. It's been in the can.
Yeah.
But we're all experiencing it for the first time.
Well, let me get
here's
into
the interesting thing about like, so it's called The Last Dance.
Yeah, why is it called that?
So it's specifically chronicling 97-98, which was their last run with that dynasty team. Going into that season, the general manager pretty much had said that Phil Jackson, their legendary coach, who then went on to coach Kobe and Shaq, and won championships with them, won 5 with them, this was going to be his last year. There's a lot of questions as to why would they break it up, and that's kind of the fun of watching the documentary unfold and finding out who was responsible for what.
Spoiler alert, he is the greatest player of all time.
Yeah. The long story short, that was not, everyone knew it. Like everybody, even like casual fans like me, you just kind of knew it. And the NBA, it was in the papers. Like it was just a known fact that this was going to be Phil Jackson's last year. and most likely Michael Jordan's also, because he had said he's not going to play without Phil Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
So the NBA decided to film it. So the Bulls and Jordan and Phil Jackson gave them unprecedented access, and I think they shot over 1 million feet of footage of the team that year.
Mm.
And then it was basically just kept in a vault for up until 2 years ago, whenever they started like making it. Basically, they were waiting to get Jordan's. I don't know if they contractually needed his his blessing, or they just wanted it and they wanted him to participate in it.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever it is, whatever the reason is, Jordan decided, okay, I'm ready to like fully participate, and you can interview me now.
Well, I mean, hindsight helps.
It's everything. No, because he is like, as for as famous as he is, like he's really reclusive. He like rarely gave interviews, and if he did, they really weren't that candid.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty safe. Didn't want to offend anybody. Just wanted to like show up, do his press commitments, and get out of there. But in the documentary, everyone's been talking about it. You see a glass of whiskey next to him, and his eyes are bloodshot, and there's a cigar, and he's a 56-year-old billionaire with nothing left to prove, just like openly telling his feelings, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
because you look at a guy like LeBron James, like there's really not that much mystery to him.
Yeah,
but by design, like LeBron has embraced using social media and branding himself while playing in a way we've never seen before. I mean, we know what his kitchen looks like. His daughter has a YouTube show. Like, his son, ESPN shows his son's high school basketball games. Jordan, we didn't know.
Yeah.
We didn't know. Really quickly, can I say, like, one of my favorite things so far, I think it's in the first episode, the thing that was so amazing to me was there was just this footage of Michael Jordan driving into the parking lot of the training facility, and him just parking his car and walking in the back door. And it's like that was just amazing to see, because with him, he was a superhero. You saw him on the court, doing these amazing things, literally flying through the air, and then he just kind of like was gone.
Yeah.
And you didn't really see him. You didn't know that much about him. Like, stuff came out later, but not like while he was actually doing it. So I don't know, just there's something just so amazing and kind of breathtaking about seeing him park his car, walk into practice. I don't know.
Yeah, that is kind of always like an interesting thing to see. Just the whole like, he's just like us.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
So maybe I like do you recommend this to you said it's odd that you said you're a casual basketball fan. That's how you feel, honestly, or?
Oh no, I'm a huge basketball fan.
Oh, okay. I thought you said
I said I'm probably more knowledgeable than the casual basketball.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No, anything I can be a hothead and know more about basketball, for instance.
But let's
Connie Wilkins, the Hawk.
I love that you have all this prepared. And it's like if we had a budget and we had like where you could show screens of things, but you just hold up toys and all right, well that is really interesting. Mike, I have a few tougher questions, I guess. I don't know if they're tough. I don't know what I'm doing really with basketball.
This is probably one of the best books about basketball ever. It's about the 1978 Portland Trail Blazers. I highly recommend it.
Okay. That's for all you. But was there any point with the documentary where you were watching it as an avid basketball person? Were you watching it going, yeah, all right, I knew this? But I guess is there any of that? Do you feel like,
I'll say, here's kind of a good analogy. I remember watching a few years ago, I was watching a Beatles documentary.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, you kind of know all the stories
Mm-hmm.
But if it's done right, and I guess the thing I love about this the most is the participation they're getting from Phil Jackson, Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan, Dennis Rodman, Jerry Reinsdorf, who was the owner, Steve Kerr. The fact that they're telling their stories,
Yeah.
and that everyone's being pretty candid about it,
Yeah.
and that the fact that we are 20 years removed, so
Right.
a lot of stuff is coming out. That's like, so yeah, you're really not kind of learning anything new about the chronology, or sort of like, I mean, you maybe hear about, oh, this fight happened, or this. But everyone pretty much knows, and the highlights by now. But
What?
but yeah, it's hearing these people, and again, I can't stress enough, especially hearing Michael Jordan, who like really never been this forthcoming or candid. Hearing him
Right.
just speaking his mind and really not caring, it's pretty revelatory. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, with a Beatles doc, everyone knows the songs, everyone pretty much knows the stories, but like if for whatever reason you could get Paul or Ringo, to like just give their opinion on things that we've never heard before, really hear their insight. That's kind of what I would equate it to.
Mm-hmm. What about just like what about a person that casually understands this kind of thing? Do you think it's not as what's the word, accessible for people who like kind of?
So I guess, yeah, I'm thinking a lot about it in terms, like, not in terms of, but kind of in relation to the OJ doc, which
Mm-hmm.
that I
Yeah.
think is for everybody, because it definitely gets more into like, just the bigger socioeconomic, political parts of it. This
Mm-hmm.
really doesn't, and not as a failure. It's not trying to. It's just,
Right.
but I wouldn't call it just fan service. I guess I would say that if you just like a fascinating story told really well, then yeah, you'll like it. But I don't know if there's any bigger kind of like societal themes. I mean, there's definitely like interesting themes about hubris and humility and greed and
Right.
ego and that kind of stuff. That's, I guess, inherent in every story. But yeah, I would recommend it just because it's just so well done. And
Yeah.
I mean, we've probably all watched docs about subject matters we didn't know anything about, but
Sure.
found them interesting.
How is Dennis Rodman? I feel like I haven't seen Dennis Rodman in the news. Like I have no idea what he's been like. I think the last time I saw him was like a few years ago on Celebrity Apprentice, and he seems so checked out.
Oh well,
Out of
that's
but how does he look? Or is he like he's just that's a figure I remember seeing a lot of because he was so part of the lexicon of
the
just being
hair, the
the
dyed hair.
hair, the trouble he
Yeah,
gets in. Well, not
yeah,
trouble, but he was like kind of
no
in
trouble.
the public
But also,
eye.
like, but the fact he was like I mean, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's probably inch for inch. He's the greatest. Not probably. He's the greatest rebounder ever to live,
Mm,
ever. Like, he's not just good. He is an all-time best at rebounding a basketball. Which, if you play professional basketball, that's an important thing.
yeah.
So like, he's like. But yes, of course, he's more known for the freak show and dating Carmen
But
Electra and all that stuff.
how did he seem? Did he seem more mellow, or does he seem pretty crazy still, or
Well,
'cause he's probably
so the next episode, which will be
hmm
episode 3, which will be this Sunday,
hmm
focuses on him.
oh
But I'm very well versed in Rodman because he first was a Piston,
so he's your
Detroit
guy.
Piston,
Yeah.
and I would always see him at the JCC Jewish Community Center playing basketball because he lived by there.
Yeah.
And I would see him every now and then, like, saw him multiple times at Stage Deli on Orchard Lake Road. And he always has been like a really shy, introverted guy.
hmm
And it turns out, like, like there was like abuse in his family, and he's had a really like hard background. And he was a janitor at the community college he wound up playing basketball for. He's just like a truly freak athlete. So all that being said, and it wasn't when he was the Pistons, it was all like positive energy and all that stuff. And And it wasn't until he went to the San Antonio Spurs. That's when he started dyeing his hair and becoming more outlandish and turning a little more negative and started getting technicals. And then like when he went to the Bulls, it was kind of said that like only a team as structured as the Bulls were with Jordan and Pippen could get Rodman in line. Because everywhere else, he kind of just it was too hard to contain him.
Yeah.
But Jordan was like, oh, it's fucking Jordan. Like,
right.
You know, even Rodman will kind of, you know, bow down to Jordan. Wait, but do you know, like, so, but most recently he's been in the news, Rodman, like a few years ago, you didn't know about this? He was taking NBA players to North Korea to play for Kim Jong-il.
Yes, I knew about that.
So,
I heard about that.
Yeah. So that's, you know, he looks pretty crazy and weird. I don't know. Yeah, he's.
I mean, I just haven't seen him. I just figured he got like. I don't mean to sound negative. I mean, I am an overweight man, but I just kind of thought he would get like fat and just kind of like sitting in a recliner and just relaxing more now.
In relatively good shape. I don't know, but he looks more like an ex-member of Motley Crue than he does an ex-member of an NBA team, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Like he has a big nose ring and like yeah. He's not what you would think a jock would look like, but but and I'm sure this will get covered. Like, make no mistake about it, he is a truly all-time great rebounder and defensive player. Inch for inch, he's one of the best, if not the best, defensive player to ever live.
Was he adopted?
That's how good he is.
Was he adopted, or was he Jewish in some way? Because Rodman sounds a little Jewish. I don't know.
No, Andy, he was not. That was his birth name.
Okay, I didn't want to assume anything, but I was just curious.
So, do you think anyone with like a min?
Well, you also said he saw him at the Jewish Center too. Okay. So I thought maybe.
Why don't we skip ahead to the non-anti-Semitic portions of the show?
Is it anti-Semitic? I'm sorry.
It's not.
Okay.
As far as I know, Dennis Rodman is not Jewish.
Okay.
He has had some Jewish deli. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So I guess the more my harder questions I wanted to ask.
Hard hitting.
Hard hitting. I don't know if they're even hard hitting, but
see if I have any more basketball stuff to show you. But go ahead.
So, do you think they'll talk about his? Because I always heard that he was a very aggressive gambler, Michael Jordan.
Jordan, yeah.
Like,
they'll cover. Yeah.
You think they're going to cover? Because I think maybe you told me the story or somebody else told me the story that he would he's an avid golfer, but also an avid gambler, which a lot of these basketball player guys are apparently very big gamblers, especially someone I figured
it's trying to replace that rush of competition.
Yeah. And I also imagine if you're kind of a squeaky clean kind of a sports figure, I imagine gambling is probably the safer of vices to be part of, something that isn't drugs or alcohol.
Interestingly enough, the golf thing, it's, again, this is not insider info. There's been books written about it. The golf thing always seemed to also accompany huge gambling.
Yeah.
Like 6 figures were lost golfing.
With him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't want to get into the whole conspiracy theories about his dad being killed because of gambling debts, because I certainly don't know anything other than the conspiracy theories and
do you think they're going to address that too, maybe? Or
yes, yeah, they'll address again. I don't know how far they'll go into,
and also his dad's death.
Specifically his dad, but he'll talk about his dad's death, because irregardless of what it has to do or not with gambling, it was that is seen as the big reason why he retired the first time.
Right.
Remember, he went and played baseball for a couple of years.
Yes.
But here's the gambling thing I remember that kind of stuck out. That I was like, oh, this doesn't seem like what an athlete should be doing. Like he would during the playoff runs, when there were home games in Chicago, I guess like he was just so amped up from the adrenaline of playing, he would leave the game. So you get out of the arena, it's probably like 1:00 in the morning by the time, or like midnight, by the time you get done with like the press and everything.
Right.
If your game starts like 8 or whatever it is, midnight, 1:00, right? He would just drive to, this is in Chicago, he would just drive like an hour or whatever it was, hour and a half, to the riverboats in Gary, Indiana, and would just gamble the rest of the night.
Wow.
Yeah. So like, I mean, that stuff started to come out, and also, the longer he played, the more, I mean, social media wasn't around then, but the more the barrier between the public and private life came down, and especially the most famous athlete in the world started to become one of the biggest celebrities in general in the world.
Yeah.
So it was harder for him to do anything, anonymously anymore.
There was that weird, I heard that story that he he was part of, I would imagine, many clubs, golf clubs or golf courses, like where he played golf, and then like he would get kind of paired with just different people. And I imagine that these people weren't like poor, but they were probably not doing as well as he was, I imagine. But like some people would get paired with them, and I heard a story where he, like, it was just like probably some fucking dentist got paired with him or something, and he was like, hey, he said, do you want to make this interesting? And they're like, yeah, I guess so. He's like, how much were you thinking? And then Jordan would say, how much are you afraid of losing? And like, apparently it was like really scary and intimidating. And I was just like, I would feel pretty scared. And I'm just like, that seems like such a big, crazy thing to say. And it sounds like kind of like a problem that he might have.
Look, again, who am I to diagnose anyone? But it does seem like he had a gambling problem, for sure.
Yeah.
But there's probably not a golf course in the world that wouldn't want Michael Jordan.
Right.
Well, the funny thing is also, like, again, maybe compared to the average golfer, because he has more maybe time and access and to resources, he wasn't like great. Like he wasn't by no means good enough to like join any professional golf circuits.
Right.
So that was always something I found kind of funny.
I think I've heard, I could be dead wrong, but I heard Bill Murray is actually better at golfing than he is.
Maybe.
But he lost a lot of money just playing golf that he played.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yes. Yeah. There was a book that chronicled it, unauthorized, but.
Oh, really? Was it a good read, or?
I never read it, but again, this was like probably like early mid '90s, when again his fame was cresting, and not just like literally arguably the most famous person in the world for from '92 with like the Olympics, the Dream Team, through 1998. Like there's probably no list of the most famous people in the world that he wasn't in the top 10 at least, that time period. So it just became harder and harder for him to maintain any secrecy. So all the stuff about his notorious gambling started to come out. And he was like, there was like huge sums, like losing and winning like high six figures, and like whether it's a round of golf or playing cards or whatever it was.
Yeah. So my other thing is, now this is pretty, I don't know if I would label this as obscure. that but this is a thing I was reading in this comic book series called 100 Bullets.
Okay.
100 Bullets is a kind of a film noir-ish crime drama book.
Okay.
And in it, there's a point where a young man meets like this kind of mafia head or don named Nino, and like they were talking about the interest they had like an interesting generational gap, which I've heard about, which is that the older folks seem to prefer basketball, as the newer people kind of prefer the older folks seem to prefer baseball,
Yeah.
and the newer folks seem to prefer basketball.
Right.
And and the idea that they wouldn't like baseball, they thought he kind of I'm sorry, he kind of says that it's un-American that he doesn't like baseball, and then like, but they criticizes he criticized the mafia head criticizes basketball and Jordan by saying that Jordan kind of did like a lot of illegal things on the court, such as palming. I'm just gonna bring up that little thing real quick just to quote them exactly. And
Your news source is a fictional.
Yeah, fictional comic. But I always felt like
not a fictional graphic novel. The graphic novel exists, but
yeah, just they let that son of a bitch play by his own rules. Extra step, palming, Christ. He could have carried a gun on court and never heard a whistle.
That's some of the best basketball commentary I've ever heard.
There is
I'll say that in the way
Can I just finish one more thought though?
Please do.
All right, because I feel like I'm just curious about this, because there are some people who kind of criticize Muhammad Ali too, who is arguably the greatest boxing champion of all time, right?
Let me stop you right there. So like here's a good way to put Michael Jordan into perspective.
Yes.
As far as American professional athlete icons,
mm-hmm.
it's him, it's Michael Jordan, Muhammad Ali, and Babe Ruth.
Mm-hmm.
You can have an argument as to who ranks what. And maybe there's just recency bias, but that's pretty much it.
Right.
That's what this guy's legacy is. That's where Jordan is. But
no, I'm not trying to begrudge him.
No, I was putting it in perspective. That's how big he was or is. Yeah.
But I feel like there is something to it, because I've heard people, and even Babe Ruth too, from what I understand. Now, I'm getting a lot of this information secondhand. I'm not a huge avid fan, but I'm just saying the things that You
haven't talked to Babe Ruth directly?
I haven't talked to Babe Ruth directly, or anyone who was there, because they're dead. But with Muhammad Ali, a lot of people were saying, because he did kind of the rope-a-dope trick, and he would also kind of take away from the fundamentals of basketball, because instead of because the rope-a-dope involves just tiring out the opponent and not actually doing almost any real fighting kind of thing. That takes away the fundamentals of actual fighting, which is
yeah, you could I guess you could say a defender would say it's gamesmanship. Yeah.
So and then also with
cheating the sport. Yeah.
Yes, and also Babe Ruth. At one point I heard this as a rumor, but was one point was lazy and wouldn't run around the bases if he did a home run, but you were supposed to do it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So there is with every great person, your Jordans and Ruths and Muhammad Ali, there is a certain level of weird leeway where people are yeah, but he's doing it differently, and we have to make concessions to this kind of thing.
Well,
so I'm wondering, I feel am I wrong in thinking that maybe the guy in the comic has a point? Was Jordan kind of bending the rules a little bit with flying through the air, when I think this was not a big thing? I don't know. Am I wrong in thinking that
I 100% disagree with
Okay.
with Nino.
Okay.
All due respect.
Do you want to? Would you like to comment now, or
I
can I?
would, yeah.
Okay.
In regards to basketball, the actual rules, you could probably call it traveling or palming the ball on every single play if you really wanted to. It's
Mhm.
probably if you really want to call it to the exact letter of the law. Same within football. If you wanted to call offensive holding on every play, you probably could.
Mhm.
Um, every,
Well, do you think that
yeah, I disagree
Jordan?
with your comic book.
Well, I mean, I don't think the character Nino in the comic, he doesn't. Spoiler alert for anyone reading it. He doesn't last, and he's not supposed to be. He's not supposed to be a likable character. He's not the hero of it. He's just the
Yeah.
side character. But I just kind of remember that sticking and remembering, is this what like some people, some purists would think, that like it's not fair? And also in the way that like there was kind of like that thing about in baseball, they were saying that like everybody gets to hit. I'm not going to favor one person over another. You know what I mean? Like
But there's
every.
always going to be old heads that are going to, yell about the times moving on. Like, yeah, I'm sure there's old school guys that so Jordan didn't play the right way or whatever. And Jordan's been he's been critical of some of the new players, saying they don't. Jordan, a lot of the guys he came up with, like Larry Bird, like Isaiah, like a Charles Barkley, they've been critical about the fact that players don't seem to play with as much anger or hostility towards their opponents. So I don't know. That's always, I don't know. But at a certain point, you're just like the guy who writes radio plays who is like, TV, they shouldn't even allow it. Like, I don't know, like things
Well,
change.
we'll just
But
move on.
like, look, again, no offense to your fictional character.
I didn't
Nobody,
create them, but I mean,
nobody with any like yeah no I don't know what to say. No, nobody would say Michael Jordan cheated the game at all.
well, would you say that he changed it though? Like because of.
100%. That's actually a really interesting thing. I was actually texting with a friend of mine. Um, we were talking about how modern his game seemed.
Mhm.
Like how look, this looks like a 2020 game,
Mhm.
and it was like really kind of cool to be like, oh, he was actually like 22 years ahead of his time. You know
Mhm.
that phrase, like you're ahead of your time. It's like I don't
Yeah.
know. It was a way of like actually like quantifying how ahead of his time he was. And
Yeah. Because
yeah,
the.
his game looked. It looked. I mean, he didn't shoot threes, but again, that just wasn't a thing people did. But as far as like the way he handled the ball and drove the ball, and yeah, he was like 20 years ahead of his time.
I
It's
remember.
amazing.
I mean, I think there was like a point with I think it's like.
And also, he is so
Mhm.
graceful. He was so beautiful to watch. It's
Oh no, I mean that's what truly separates him from
yeah.
other
There's
people,
just a
because he
grace and
was
elegance about it.
he was also just awe-inspiring, and
Yeah.
that's always a good thing. But like was there ever a point? I remember, I don't know if it was SNL or Kids in the Hall, who did this sketch about like basketball in the beginning, and it was just like very slow and boring. Was basketball ever like a slow kind of paced game?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I,
I mean, yeah, but like everything it evolves. I mean, but I guess maybe the difference between like basketball and baseball. I mean, I like baseball, but the rules of the game kind of like limit how athletic it can be.
mm-hmm.
Because like people, like everyone's kind of stationary for the most parts.
Yes.
But basketball, like maybe allowed for just the evolution of the athleticism. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they literally, like the very first, like the very, very, very first games, they didn't even think to cut out the bottom of the peach baskets. So every time someone scored, they would have to stop the game, get out of the ladder, get the ball out, and then they used to do a jump ball after every point scored. So imagine that. Imagine like every time someone scores a point now, you stop the game, you bring it to half court, you do a jump ball after it.
Right.
Like so. Um, well, Connie Hawkins, the Hawk, he was one of the original high flyers. That was like in the '60s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was one of the first guys to really start playing above the rim, as they would
Hmm.
call it.
Hmm.
Of course, Dr. J, you've heard of.
Yes.
Um, and there's a guy named, oh well, I forget his name. His name was Dr. Duncanstein. I forget I forget his name, which is embarrassing because he was also another like innovator as far as changing the style of the game. There's a guy named
What an ironic twist that thing his name was actually related to something he did a lot. Like
yeah,
some
oh
kind
yeah,
of
no, yeah. Well, the
like some
Dunker,
kind
yeah,
of monster.
the Duncansteins were great orthopedic surgeons in their town.
um, well, I will. I think we should wrap it up. I would say this is our kind of our first pilot episode, and
Maybe our last.
maybe our last. If there's enough likes on this, we'll do another one.
I can't see how you and me are not the go-to sources of deconstructing the Michael Jordan documentary.
Yeah. Well, basketball. It's going to be about basketball because I'd love to talk to you about Rick Barry, who I learned a little bit about, and I find really interesting. So maybe we'll do an episode.
You know, he is now currently a columnist for I think the San Francisco Chronicle or some newspaper in Oakland. And it's weird because he used to play for the Golden State Warriors and won a championship with them.
Yes.
But now attends the games just like a regular member of the press.
Well, I mean, I thought it would be kind of an interesting thing. We can chronicle a different thing of basketball, and I thank you for. It's been very interesting and enlightening, and I appreciate all your insight. And if you, I don't know, I'll invite it and I'll screen it, I guess. But if anyone has any comments to anything that Josh said that they thought